Okay, welcome everyone. It is October 23rd, 2000. No, this is not the 23rd. It's the 20th.
Yep,
Is
it
it
is.
the 23rd
It is the
today?
23rd.
Gosh.
All day?
Okay. I'm skipping ahead a few days. I was thinking it was the 25th, but I got that on my brain. So there we go. It is Monday, October 23rd, 2023. It is our 9 o'clock strategic planning meeting. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. 4 of us are in the room, and Commissioner French is on Zoom. Thank you. And our executive management team. And we're starting off with Randy Bischoff,
The sheriff's presentation.
Sheriff's presentation. So we have the sheriff here. Welcome and thank you for coming to do your budget presentation.
It's our pleasure. So we're going to start off kind of talking about some of the highlights, areas that we were advised that the commissioners wanted to talk to us about our budget for 2024. If we go to the first slide, we'll talk a little bit about some of the staffing challenges that we are facing today. Some things are actually, these numbers tell a pretty significant tale as to why we're seeing some of the issues we are with our overtime budget. We have a total of 264 commission positions that are authorized and funded. We have 229 filled as of today. We have 35 funded openings that are available. We have 20 current absences. And what we mean by absences that are people who are out on long-term leave like FMLA. Quite a bit of those right now are out on FMLA. And I think there was a couple other who were out on time loss.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, sorry, it'll show it right here, yeah.
So yeah, we have 2 out on sick leave for FMLA, 4 people light duty, 1 out on safety loss, and then 13 out on the Washington State paid family medical leave. We have a young department. A lot of them are starting families, so that is a significant tax on our staffing right now. Many of them are gone for anywhere from 3 to 6 months out on this program, which is fine. Just so you know, it's a significant draw on our staffing. If you look at our overall patrol staffing, if you go to the next slide, it's about, we only have about 72% of our patrol people actually out filling shifts. So of all the people we have employed, taking a paycheck from us in the patrol area, we are only seeing 72% of them actually contributing to the workload day to day out on the street. Again, we have 19 absences in patrol. We have 17 vacancies in patrol. The balance of those are somewhere else in the agency, like the investigative division. And we have 14 people right now still in training. So again, our workload is not going away, but we have some significant challenges, not only staffing the 35 bodies that we're down, but actually people who are employed getting a paycheck, actually have them out producing work. As you can see, there's a couple of statistics there that are helpful for you to understand and where we're at. So are there any questions about that so far? Okay, pretty high level thing. Yes, sir.
How's the, I know we talk about this a lot, but the 35 current openings, is it going up and down in any pattern, fashion?
It actually goes up and down almost weekly as we're hiring people as quickly as we can get them in the door. You know, we have a couple new people that we commissioned recently, so it brought that number down. I think we were at about 36 or 38 a little while ago. We did have quite a few people who had lateraled this year. I think we lost 7 people that we had hired as laterals, and then either their spouses decided they didn't like Spokane, or they had family issues back home and they left and went back to their original agency. That was a significant manpower hit to us this year. We did not have anywhere near as many retirements this year as we had in previous years. We did pretty well. I know we're knocking on wood. We don't project a significant number of retirements next year either, but all sorts of things influence that.
So are those all officer positions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think if memory serves, I think we ended last year with 33 vacancies and now we're at 35. So it's I mean,
Kind of
it's been hovering, I think the last couple of years, it's been hovering around the mid-30s. And there actually was a time where we had all of those positions, or not all of those positions, but minus 21 up, and we still had 21 vacancies, but we had a lot of the other ones full. It's just that then we lost a lot of people, so.
Right. And I would like to also point out, with 35 vacancies, I think in the last 3 years, the commission has given us, upwards of 30 of those as new funded positions. So if you look at our historical strength, we're actually doing pretty well for what we've been staffing wise for the last 15 years. So again, we'll kind of go into some of that as we go forward and how we fund positions that aren't filled, and what we anticipate filling. I think a couple other things to note: in the last 2 years, because we had a very competitive contract with the city of Spokane, we were actually offering lateral hiring bonuses and things like that. We brought in a lot of lateral applicants. We currently have no lateral applicants in our pool right now because the city negotiated a very aggressive contract and also matched our hiring bonuses. And also some of the things that we had done to attract laterals, the city matched. I think just recently they hired 6 or 7 lateral applicants, and we are getting none right now. So that pool has become a lot more challenging as of late.
And just to be, this slide right here, or these stats right here, you'll notice in our budget how our overtime ask has gone up quite a bit. And this is the reason why, is we want to make sure that we can cover these shifts and we can cover the overtime. Because even, vacancies, it can also be potential savings, right? There are empty spots, so there's potentials for saving some money there too. But it just comes with a price tag of overtime. And so that's why we've addressed the overtime issue by raising that a little bit.
And are you seeing the laterals go from the sheriff's department go to the city of Spokane? Now that we try to get.
Not for years.
No, in fact, I don't think we've lost someone to the Spokane Police Department in probably the better part of 10 years. Yeah, now we are seeing people leave our agency and going to another state. And I'm fully well aware of at least one current member who is considering moving out of state. That is also a challenge. So, next slide. Okay.
So,
You ready, Ben?
yeah, these are the kind of the budget highlights, and I'm gonna have Chris kind of explain a lot of these. You can see that the overall salary and benefits increased just slightly, and that's basically the COLAs, built-in COLAs from the last year of the contract. Funding for extra duty, you see that went up, but one thing to consider is that is offset by revenue, and so should be a 0 really, because that is paid out of contracts for extra duty, and those are paid into our system, and it zeroes that out. Overtime, there's the increase for overtime.
I'm just going to explain that.
Yeah.
So that's like when they go to Walmart, where Walmart hires them for extra duty, we get enough revenue to cover this cost. So this is a non-financial impact to the general fund.
And there's the overtime budget that I alluded to. It's gone up. So, like, Chris, do you remember what it was last year? Is it down at the bottom? I just can't see it.
So it was
600 something, right?
what ended up happening last year was we had aggressively reduced our overtime in anticipation of a higher recruitment success. And when that didn't occur, so last year our budget was 3.8, which was way too low. We got aggressive trying to reduce the budget, and it was too low. So we're bringing it back up to 4.6, which is really in line with 22 actuals.
And then, Chris, can you talk about the next one too, the savings and benefit correction?
Randy probably has the specifics behind that correction. That's a budget department correction that takes place. It's a
Is this the
2,300 account that basically you probably anticipated higher than what you experienced in terms of benefits, and it's basically.
Was this for the vacancy adjustment?
This is for benefits.
Okay.
Maybe the medical came in less than what it was anticipated or what it was budgeted for. And then the very bottom one there, the funding for salaries, that is kind of the savings, I believe, from the vacancies and what you can you can take, we have 35 vacancies. We don't necessarily have to fund them all until we're ready to hire to those positions. So you can realize some savings throughout the year by not funding those positions until totally necessary.
And for that vacancy adjustment, we did 20 positions.
20 positions, yeah. So 20 to 35 will be unfunded going into next year.
Well, and one thing I'd like to illustrate for you when we start talking about the funding for overtime, we showed kind of what some of the drivers for overtime are. And then in years previous, as Chris was talking about, we anticipated, I think we hired almost 40 people in 2022. Yeah. We really thought that we would maintain that pace. We've hired 16 this year to date. So when Chris talks about, we really lowered our projected overtime budget last year because we thought that we were going to get on top of it. We didn't realize that we'd run into a hiring wall this year. Not only did we lose 7 people that we didn't anticipate on losing, but again, we have not hired anywhere near the number of people we did last year to date. So that's why we've adjusted that overtime projection for next year.
What do you attribute that to?
It's really unpopular to be in law enforcement right now.
But it was last year too.
Yeah, well, we got
On the laterals last year.
Remember last year we had the hiring bonus, and then our contract was structured in such a way, it was negotiated that the laterals could come in at whatever step, or they could apply their years of service, and they got the hiring bonus. Well, the city matched that. The city did the exact same thing that we did because it worked. And so they're getting a lot of the lateral applicants now that we're just not getting. So.
Okay.
Commissioner, one other thing that I'd like to add is we saw a shutdown in interest. As soon as interest rates started going up, people didn't want to move away from their existing mortgage.
It used to be pretty attractive to move from California to sell a house and then come buy a house for cash up here. But with the way, the market is going now, that's just not in the cards anymore.
Right. And there's a couple of different factors. I mean, a lot of the laterals coming from the west side of the state and from, say, California, a lot of it had to do with COVID vaccine mandates. Well, that's not an issue anymore. So you're not seeing people leave the Washington State Patrol. You're not seeing people leave from agencies down in California that required that when we didn't. And so that pipeline is gone now as well.
And the entry level pipeline is just not what it used to be
for anybody.
And that's across the country. This is not a Washington problem. It's not a Spokane problem. It's a nationwide problem with candidates for a lot of public safety type positions. Even firefighters are experiencing it.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah.
I would just add, the budget that they have for 24, it's like they said, it's in line with 22. It's in line with the run rate for 23. And without additional officers coming in, we shouldn't expect any different into 24.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of our projections, we're trying to get what is actually in those budget lines more in line with actual expenditures than what it has been in the past. So,
we get the next slide, please. So we originally had submitted a training budget that was a little higher than what you're seeing up there. We've gone through and pared it down quite a bit, but it's still higher than what it was last year. But there's things to consider. We have lost a lot of people a lot of officers who were instructors, and we're having to retrain people to be instructors again, because we do a lot of our training in-house because it actually saves money, but we have to have certified instructors to do so. And so we're having to kind of retrain a lot of those individuals to be instructors. And another issue is state mandates and legislative mandates, especially for our major crimes and investigative divisions. There's a lot of classes that they just have to have mandatorily that they didn't have to have in the past, so we have to get them to, and some of them are kind of expensive. Another one of the issues is DUFB funds are basically gone, and we used to cover a lot of training with DUFB funds. That it's just not an option anymore, and so we're having to.
What is that?
designated unfunded,
Unrestricted
fund balance.
And it's and they would take in seizures, drug seizures, and property seizures from drug arrests, and then sell those items, and those would go into the DUFB funds, and that would cover a lot of training and a lot of purchases.
With no impact on the general.
Yeah, with no impact on general fund.
And traditionally, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, it would not be uncommon for some of those doofies to have balances of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. But over the last 10 years, as drug enforcement has dropped off. Obviously, the last 2 years during Blake had a significant effect on that. There has also been a significant amount of, I wouldn't say legislation, but court decisions that have restricted what we can seize and how, which has also slowed things down. And then also sharing from our federal partners has changed as well in recent years. So end of the day, we used to buy vehicles and pay for training for our narcotics investigators out of these doofy funds, and they are gone. I don't know if we even have $15,000 total in our federal and state doofies right now. I don't believe we do. So it's become quite a challenge. So we used to send people to all sorts of narcotics training, undercover school training and stuff, and we would use doofy funds to pay for that. Part of the increase over last year is because we can no longer use the doofies to pay for it.
Also, I want to point out, so this, I believe it was around 500,000 last year-ish.
Yes.
560, yeah. We did, I know you guys all saw it, we opened a nice new training center out there, and we are actively pursuing training or people to come in and teach at our facility. And so a lot of those expenses, we're hoping to basically get rid of them. So we want a budget just in case we have to send people to training, but if we can bring it in-house and get free slots at our training center, we are going to use that. And that is the goal, and that's what the training unit is doing right now. And they are already scheduled a few classes that I think are going to wipe out some of that over the year. But we want to make sure that we're budgeting for things that we have to send people to. If we end up getting it for free and we don't spend it all, that's a good thing. So.
So what was the reduction amount?
Well, from your version,
Yeah.
it went down over 600,000.
Okay.
It's a $362,000 reduction.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And what's that from?
Well,
Reduced to 6, yes.
there were some in there that were duplicates.
Yeah.
It was funny because I think when you guys saw it, you went, okay, how'd this happen? And it was funny as soon as we saw it, I'm like, what happened here?
Yeah.
How'd this happen?
They would load it in the specific unit, and then they would also load it in training.
Oh, I see.
And all of a sudden, we're like, okay, that doubled everything. So that was a problem. And we did make some corrections.
Always good to find ways to reduce it.
It was
Good
easy.
job. Good
Find
job.
any more of those?
We're going to do that every year now from now on.
And then makes you guys look so good. Yeah.
But
I love that we reduced it.
probably $30,000 of that is to train a firearms examiner. That is not something that is a recurring training year over year over
Okay.
year. In fact, originally the projected budget for that position, the training alone was going to be $90,000, but we found ways to cut it down and bring some stuff to us in this region instead of having to send that employee out of state for months, which reduced it by about $60,000. So there are some one-time cost generators in there that will not be there next year. So they kind of bumped it up a little bit.
As far as fuel, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Fuel has gone up pretty much every month since last year, and we actually don't show any kind of material change in monthly usage of our fuel. It's just more expensive, and so we're trying to budget for what we believe is going to be an actual expense for next year.
I just don't see a lot of factors locally and geopolitically that's going to drive fuel prices down.
In fact, that may be opposite. So, attractive equipment reduction, Chris.
And I would just add on the fuel, that is in line with what they spent in '22 and they're projected for '23. And fuel prices, as they said, have not come down. We've been watching, if you watch Gas Bubbly, I think it shows your average gas price in Spokane. It's going up, where typically if we go down in September, it's now staying flat or going up. So we don't anticipate seeing any savings in fuel going forward at this time.
I will point out on some of the training stuff you asked, where we ended up cutting. In years past, our SWAT team, to meet their annual mandates to remain certified, they usually do a week-long training. In years past, they've had they had a really good deal given to them through the National Tactical Office Association to go to a training camp in Montana. which they let us go there for free, but you can't send 25 members of a SWAT team out of town for 6 days without incurring about, $25,000 worth of travel expenses. Well, this year they're getting a staycation. We have a brand new training facility out there. They're gonna use that. Us probably shouldn't be that tongue-in-cheek about it, but they were advised they're not leaving the county to do the training this year. So they're gonna get the week's training, they're gonna maintain their certification, but they're gonna do it here. So we cut programs like that out. There were some other programs where we thought that, it was a want, not necessarily a need. This 660,000 represents what we have to do to maintain certification and continue to provide top level services to the citizens of the county. We really did go through and get rid of a lot of them.
Chris, can you talk about the attractive equipment?
Attractive, yeah. So the major driver on that one was just some one-time expenses that showed up in our budget for the RTIC, even though it was budget neutral. It still shows up in as a 290 department. And I've been talking with Randy and we're still needing to load that budget in there. But all of that stuff will not take place. There was a lot of one-time drivers that just standing that program up.
Because that comes down to the ARP dollars.
Correct, yep.
Correct, so we will have, as we load any additional costs, there will be an offset to revenue side to pay for that, so it would be no more general fund dollars for that.
Can we get the next slide, please? All right, the vehicle replacement policy. So we were asked to come up with a kind of a policy and a plan for vehicle replacement. I believe in your packet, there's also a Word document and a spreadsheet that kind of shows how we got to where we got to here. But essentially the idea is we want to replace 25 vehicles each year. That'll give us almost 4 years of service and patrol. And then some of those can be moved to other units where they can be used for another couple years, kind of extend the life of them and address needs other places. The remainder of those would likely be auctioned off or sold to recoup some of the cost, not recoup the cost, but to at least recoup some money to put back into the general fund. We're estimating about $9,500 for a vehicle with 90,000 miles on it that's 4 years old, but that's probably a low estimate. So there's some money coming back there. And as far as the undercover vehicles, we want to replace 4 every year. We want to retire those after about 110,000 miles or a little over 7 years of service. And that's kind of in line with what we've been doing, but we've been kind of hybriding it, piecing it together. So we just want to get a program together and just start rotating things in and out. And so everything's pretty much standardized.
And on those 4 undercover vehicles, those were also vehicles that
Yes.
traditionally have been purchased through DUFB funds that we can no longer support.
And then I'd like to add one other thing. Our fleet manager over the last basically year and a half, 2 years has been very aggressive at getting rid of additional equipment, turning that into revenue for the general fund. So we don't have a lot of surplus sitting around.
The idea is have just enough surplus to cover when there's an accident or something like that, and we really need something, and that they have enough vehicles to issue to people who we hire. That's kind of the goal there. Any questions on the vehicle replacement plan or?
Would it be possible to put that into a spreadsheet of how many vehicles we have total, how many are you replacing out of different, there's different needs for different vehicles, or are these the only 2 types of vehicles that you purchase?
So within the 25, there's marked and there's unmarked. So there's some that are, and they kind of show up on the spreadsheet as different, but those are for sergeants and supervisors.
But do you have that over multiple years? Are you projecting out? Is it literally 25 cars a year, every year?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no change in that over time that you're projecting?
Unless we hire a whole bunch of people or increase our staffing levels, and no.
Okay, so the mileage is generally always around that mileage over that many years?
We've done a lot. I think on my document there, it shows what roughly the average miles per year is, and we've calculated from pulling different stats from different places, and I did it, and Chris did it, and the garage did it. We all kind of came up with the same-ish number, and so it's a pretty good estimate for.
I'll get a copy. I think I missed the day that you guys came in to talk about
Would you
that.
like a look?
It should be uploaded in the
Is it?
It
In the
is,
packet?
yes.
packet. There's a Word document and then a.
Oh,
The average mileage was used, was arrived at with 3 different
too many
data
things
sets,
open on my.
with 3 different people putting it
But-
together.
But we probably can come up with a spreadsheet to show kind of the yearly usage and what we do. I mean, I think that's what this is.
That's what that is. But if there's more detail you want, we can find it.
Yep.
But we've run this gamut a couple times, and what is it, about 22,000 miles a year per vehicle?
24.
24?
Yeah, 24, and then 15 for non-patrol.
Yeah, so, no, I trust you that that's the average mile per, the 90,000, to me, that doesn't seem like a lot of miles on a car. I mean, it's just, for that to be
Well,
kind of end of life,
That's, I wouldn't
90
say,
seems really good.
I agree,
still.
I agree, and
Like,
I wouldn't say that's end of life, and we currently have cars out there with much higher miles than that.
Yeah,
But that's when they start having issues where there's, they're out of
Engines.
warranty. We have to start replacing transmissions, because these vehicles are not, these aren't driving to soccer practice. These are out there doing things that most Ford Explorers probably don't have to do in their lifetime. And so they start having maintenance issues that have to be addressed. And so you start adding the man hours to fix them, the cost to fix them. It starts to kind of add up, and that's kind of the sweet spot to where that kind of starts happening. And so that's why we've addressed that as, could we go more miles? Yes, we could go more miles, because we do. We have cars out there with 150, 160,000 miles on them, but they're problems.
And
And they're pretty rough.
And they're pretty rough.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you'll hear it. I know, you talk to the city police department, you talk to the valley. 100,000 miles on a police car is not the same as 100,000 miles on your car. It's not the same thing. They get beat up pretty bad.
Commissioner, I just wanted to make a final point that we also recognize that they're not at the end of the life. That's why we want to put them kind of out to the field, so to speak, for another year and a half, possibly 2 years. Then there's always the consideration that we need to make. At what point do you try to recover as much on the back end of the useful life? Because that's part of the equation as well. You adjust this one, it'll adjust 2 more numbers in the overall formula for the vehicle replacement.
How many were purchased last year?
Last year, we had two
It was 2
2
years
years,
worth.
yeah, because we had to roll over one of them. I want to say 40.
Yeah, because Ford did not deliver any vehicles in 2021, right? Or was it 2022? We got all of them this year. Wasn't that right?
Yes, we got 2 orders this year in 23, so it's
Yeah.
22.
Yeah, it was
correct.
2022, they did not deliver a single vehicle. So, and that's
And
why
we're
we had so many come in this year.
And we're still waiting for 6 more to show up from an earlier order.
Do you have, this kind of gives a general overview of kind of what you're hoping to do, right, on a regular basis going forward. Do you have kind of a snapshot of, you said you have some cars that are older, like what is the current inventory? A little more detail on what's been happening, so I can understand if this is a change, is this something different?
This would be a change.
Okay.
Like there were no vehicles made in 2020. Like we have no 2020s out there, but there's the older ones they're up in the 170s, 190s, and they're still out there being used. We certainly, we could print out the data and show you the status of every single vehicle we have out there right now.
But to answer your question, Commissioner, this isn't anything that we've radically departed from in the last 3 years. 2 years, probably, 2 3 years.
It's been longer than that. But I will say, and maybe to kind of illustrate to you kind of what the life of a vehicle looks like inside the sheriff's office. So these 25, we get a brand new police interceptor in right now. It's going to be used in patrol, depending on what it is. If it's a sergeant or lieutenant having it, the lifespan is far longer. They might go 6 or 7 years, but it'll go 3 to 5 years. in patrol, and about the 90 to $110,000 or 110,000 mile mark, they might get rolled into investigations where now a detective's going to be driving that vehicle for the next couple of years. And it might get 3 years of service out of it, and then it might either be sold after that, or it could be pushed out to scope, which we've actually, we have traditionally had cars with scope rolling around with 200 to 250,000 miles on them. They are giddy now to have cars that only have 110,000 miles on them. We've been able to replace all of them this year, haven't we?
Yes, sir. We're going to be, once this final segment rolls out and they've been outfitted, they're gonna be getting some 19s. So 5-year mark is not the cut and dried. They're now going to scope too, so we're gonna do everything that we can to prolong the life of those.
I think it was, how many years ago did we go to buying, we used to have to special order our vehicles to be painted the green and white color, but we started wrapping every vehicle we order is white. And then we wrap them all with the idea of that helps with the resale of the vehicle at the end of its life. That way we're not, it's worth a little bit more money when it doesn't look like an old black and white or an old green and white.
We would initially, and with the help of Ford actually, having a lot of equipment already installed. But the fleet manager, the sheriff's expectation of what he wants on the vehicles from a consistency standpoint, we've gone from building a vehicle over a couple week period to a vehicle over a 3-day period.
So we have interviews that may be starting here soon,
Okay.
so we need to wrap up.
Yep.
So-
Can I just ask one last question about this? So it's about 1.4, 1.5 million a year if we did this 25 each year. And how much of that is covered by the contract with the Valley?
This is just the
Yeah,
unincorporated.
they buy their own
okay.
vehicles.
They
This is
have
just
they have a
unincorporated.
very similar, almost identical replacement plan
In
that
fact,
they pay for separately.
when I was the assistant chief out there, I helped them develop their vehicle replacement plan, and it's almost exactly what this is.
Okay, so it's, got it.
We have more people.
The Valley pays for theirs directly.
Got it.
They're loaded into our budget, and they pay for them. So.
So we have that revenue loaded in our budget
Yep.
for that, yep.
Can we grab the next slide? I think it's one of the last one.
If not the last.
Yeah, that is the last.
Yep. So that's our budget request for those, and then the next slide. Oh, this is the spreadsheet with the vehicles that you have in your.
None of us can read
Yeah,
it, but you have it in your
It's
package.
in
If
your
you want to
packet,
peruse
yeah.
it later.
It's
Fine print is really fine.
yeah. And the next slide, please, sir.
It's okay, just go with it.
Just trust me.
And next one. This is kind of a breakdown of our vehicle replacement plan.
That's the Word document you have in your packet.
Okay, thank you.
And the next one. That's it. Yep. And
Oh, just wanted to offer up on the conversation earlier on the head count. While we do have a vacancy adjustment in there, similar to detention services, we want the sheriff's department to be able to hire up to their staffing levels. So we know there might be some budget adjustments that would occur. So while they're not funded, they are authorized in the budget. And to what their point was earlier, there's overtime that they recognize if they're understaffed, they're going to be doing some overtime. So likely there'll be some offsets there from a budget neutral standpoint. So we hope they'll get up and hire those 20 additional patrols or 35 vacancies. We don't expect there to be a budget impact other than moving some numbers around within the budget.
Oh, I know there was a question about the travel budget for the sheriff's office. Did we already?
That was the travel.
That's
It's travel / training.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure if they were two separate. Okay, so you've reduced that by, you said 370,
362,000.
okay.
So I will say one thing to keep in mind, and we think we can come in significantly under, with that 660,000, it's sending, probably as many as 10 detectives to DEA basic, but we're in the works right now to have DEA provided at the training center, which would eliminate all the costs, because the course is free. It's it's a 2-week course. So sending somebody to Seattle for 2 weeks gets fairly expensive. So
But
we think we can reduce that.
You'll pay that person to come here.
Well, actually, DEA
They
puts
come
it
in
on
for
for
free.
free. We're gonna give them the
Okay.
facility, and then the actual course is no cost.
Okay.
It's the travel that gets expensive, and then same thing, with the requirement for basic homicide investigations. It's $2,000 a person. Well, if we can get it put on here, it's zero. So anyway.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan, quickly.
Is there a down payment on the helicopter or not?
Not loaded into
No,
this.
there was deposit money. It was very small.
That's still negotiable, I believe.
Is it? Okay.
When the last time I talked to Chief Ellis, they had requested a $500,000 deposit, but he said that could also go down to zero according to them.
Yeah, and I didn't even think it was
Yeah,
that
I'd heard
much. I
at
thought
times it was
very
like
small.
$1.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
That's what I thought.
thought it was
Yeah,
like-
so
just wanted to
it's
check.
still, I think that is still in the air
And-
at zero according to Chief
And even if
Ellis.
it is, we have the money from
Kathy
grant
Benmore.
to pay that.
Do we have to front that and then the grant pays us back? Just wondering.
I don't remember actually.
That grant, I don't know if it was coming in and then we spent it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Chris, I don't know if you know.
I don't remember.
The last contract that I saw basically mentioned that there was gonna be a deposit. I did not think it was.
I meant, do you know about the federal grant that we are getting for the $500,000?
Does that money come in?
No, it has not.
Okay.
It's been requested, but we have not received anything yet.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank
We
you.
won't do anything until we know.
I like $1, that's
Well, I mean, it sounds a little sarcastic, I literally thought it was $1. And that got the place in the manufacturing line, so.
Thank you.
Did we update you all on the ordering for the Ford vehicles? We had come here a little while ago and we thought our ordering window was this week. Well, it turns out Ford canceled all the ordering windows and it's now coming up in February.
Okay, so the last information that you got is back on the 17th, the 20th, sorry, they changed it to 20th. Ford keeps changing it, so it's now the 20th, which was, I think, Friday. Yep. So we still have a small window, we're gonna.
I just got told by the lead sales guy last week, but anyway, they can't make up their mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's my
Well, they
understanding,
get
it's
I know, that's
uh,
what I'm thinking.
Chris Anderson, that the interviews will be in executive session.
Correct.
Okay, so would you like to take us in? So we're gonna be going into, our next item is federal grant consultant interviews. And we will be going into executive session for that, for the interview portion, not for any discussion portion. So
Correct, and those interviews will be conducted in executive session pursuant to an application for public employment under RCW 4230-110-1G. They're slated to last potentially up to noon, so 2 hours and 20 minutes at this point. And as I understand it, those present should be the board, Scott Simmons, myself, Jeff Morris, and sorry.
And can we have Ron and or Rebecca to run?
Yeah, certainly, one or the other.
Well, my skill set there is not the best, so.
okay to run it from?
Ron Valencia, anybody else?
That's it. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna go into executive session. It is now 9:41 until noon for federal grant consultant interviews. No decisions will be made. We will be making any decisions in the open public meeting at a future time. I don't know that we're not coming out.
No, I don't believe so, and actually, if maybe if Jeff could put the applicant names or at least the firm names into the record for the executive session, since they will be in attendance as well.
There'll be people from the Ferguson Group, from K&L Gates, and from, is it Desimone? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, consulting group.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, at noon, then we will conclude our meeting and we will be back at 1 o'clock for our afternoon session today. So